Well, welcome everyone. What are we calling this episode?
Parenting with boundaries. Parenting adult children.
Yes.
Going crazy parenting adult children.
That's our topic today, if you couldn't guess, is we're really talking about being parents of adult children and how parenting continues even when they're adults. But there's that transition period from when they leave the house, when they either go off to college or move out for the first time. There's the transition when a significant other comes into the picture. They get married. Then all of a sudden,
they're having children.
There's a whole nother family.
And you're sharing your children.
There's our children.
So many topics that we're going to dive into that we'll probably miss some, but we're going to just share our own personal experiences with our parenting adult children.
Yeah. So we want to dive in because we think this is a really relatable topic. And I just want to say, in doing research for this episode, you can find anything and everything on any topic. So there is a lot of information out there if you just Google how to parent children, adult children, parenting children, but also it goes into parenting daughters, parenting sons, parenting when you have a bad relationship. So anyway, with that said, well, what is your favorite part of parenting adult children?
I feel like I should be a master. I feel like I should have a degree. I am a mother of 6 kids that range from 32 to 19, and we're a blended family. Yeah. So Kenny had 3 and I had 2, and then we have ours. And so you would think with 6 kids from the age of 9 to now our oldest is 32 that I would have this mastered. And I'm just realizing through some of the stuff with my kids, I'm saying my adult kids, but my daughters that are in their 30s, shit, I don't have it mastered. I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm messing up. And I'm doing some things that I think are really good, but I'm watching how much I'm still parenting them as if they're, in high school or their adolescents. And, there's a lot that I'm still learning.
Well, I think you've mastered a lot. And there's a lot of experience, life experience, and a lot of good. We're not perfect.
No.
So we're still navigating. So I, like you, similar. I have my daughter's 31 and my youngest stepdaughter is 15. Going to be 16. Yeah. And this is 2 stepdaughters. And we have 1 boy in there, and they have recently become parents of small children. So it's a lot to navigate, a lot of emotions, a lot of things to navigate, but we're trying to figure it all out.
Well, it's learning that it shifts. And as I said, just thinking that I should have it mastered. I'm realizing that, with Kennedy being 19 and her just leaving home and kind of finding her own independence, that I'm still holding on to that part of parenting that I want to be a part of everything. I want to know everything. I hate saying this, I want to somewhat control what's still going on. And I'm having to really step back and acknowledge, okay, wait, you got to cut the cord a little bit. You got to let her have a little bit of her independence. But that said, the confusing part is they still kind of need you. They're still navigating that whole, yes, I'm independent. I'm out of the house. You can't give me a curfew. And Mom, you don't need to call me and ask me every day what I'm doing. I'm an adult until they call and say, so Mom, can you pay that medical bill? And
that's a really good point because they're independent but they're not fully independent. They're not paying their own bills. They're not paying their own way, which is not a bad thing. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's just a weird time to navigate.
It's confusing.
Yes, because I think it's confusing for them because all of a sudden they're making all these decisions on their own, except for the financial piece in the sense of I don't have to pay my own bills. But yet parents still have a little bit of say in that. And that's hard for them to navigate as they're learning their independence. But it's hard for us to go, okay, wait a minute. You are independent, but the consequences, man, once you're 18, there are different consequences too.
Yeah. When do I step in? When do I step back? And, I feel like I'm saying a lot to my kids, even, I keep saying adult kids, but my daughters are in their 30s. I think I say this a lot. Have patience with me because I'm trying to learn how to parent differently. I know that it looks differently now, and I'm still kind of reacting to situations like I would as if you were under my house, my roof, and where you're needing me more. And I just need you to be patient, because when I call up and say, hey, what are you doing? Who are you going with? What does that look like? And you're looking at it like I'm trying to control or I'm being inquisitive, and I'm really just trying to figure out how this relationship looks. So be patient with mom as much as we're being patient with you. And they are. I mean, they're learning how to navigate it as well, and they're recognizing, I guess, as just as alongside us, how much it's shifting.
Well, and I think it changes too if your kids are single and living on their own versus then they get married and now they have a significant other, which I found this article, and there were 10 tips basically for parenting adult children. And one of them that came up that I'm pretty passionate about, we've talked about this before, is don't make them choose between your family and their own. And I've seen that a lot where, sometimes they create their own they do create their own little family, but they may gravitate towards one family more than another, one side, like maybe it's the wife's or the son or the husband's, or it may be, you just have to share them. You used to have them every holiday. You used to have, okay, we have a tradition in our family. We do this. And now the significant other comes in and goes, well, my family did this. So how do we create our own? And I feel bad in some ways that it's hard for them.
I think it's hard, but just like you said, not only are you sharing them with the other family in some cases, but they also are getting to a point where they want to create their own traditions. And so they want to do their own thing. Yeah. And it's another shift that we have to be patient through and learn and about ourselves, that's what we did and how we started our own traditions. And so it's respecting that. But again, just having patience and compassion and awareness, when you are like, no guilt trips, let them figure out what that looks like, and, maybe creating some sort of plan when it comes to certain holidays or whatever. I know we've had to do that. And with 6 kids.
Oh yeah.
It becomes a lot. And we have our son, Colin, who he has, his mom's side of the family. He has his dad's side of the family, which is ours. And then his fiance has the same scenario. So there's 4 families that they are sharing between. And so it's a lot of pressure for them. And, Kenny and I really try to be patient and careful and allow them the space that they need to figure that out.
We definitely do the same. I try not to I support them and just say, hey, I know I want you whenever I can get you. Yeah. But I know you're trying to establish what that looks like for you and these new young families. And so,
so that's a good one.
That's a gift. Yeah.
That's a good one. Let's not make them choose. Another one that I thought was awesome is, talking about marriage and kids. I've got 2 of my daughters that are in that beginning stages. One, who is single and she wants to be married and she wants to start her family. And then I have my other one who is in a relationship and living with her boyfriend. And, they feel that pressure. I think that they probably are like, okay, are my parents really trying to push for this, or they bring it up, and we think it's funny, and we're a very sarcastic family, so we're always like throwing stuff at them, but learning that that's probably a lot of pressure, and so we got to maybe stop a little bit of that sarcasm and just love and support where they are today.
Yeah, I think that's great. The other piece of it is you shift from being parent to, I feel like the beautiful thing is you finally become, you're still the parent role model, but you also become more of a friend. Like, I love spending time with my adult children.
Yeah.
We have so much fun together, and now you get to enjoy them as adults, and the relationship shifts a little bit. You still go into mom. I still go into mom mode
for sure
at certain times. And there are certain things this talks about also where you can see something, is not going to be good. And you have to bite your tongue and you have to withhold. I feel like I have to. There are certain things I will definitely speak up and ask a question or say something. But this talks about unsolicited advice.
I think you're better at that than I am. I feel like I'm always like pushing my perspective, my opinion, and I need to get better at that. I'm sure my daughters would say, oh yeah, that's mom. She totally does that.
Yeah, but that comes from a caring place. And I think it depends on the subject. But I think sitting back and going, man, I don't feel good about this. I think it's not going to go the way I don't want them to go through it, but sometimes they have to go through it to figure out, well, crap, that sucked. I don't want to do that again. And you just want to save them though. We do want to save them from, this is going to be a bad mistake or whatever it is. Don't do it. But
I just listened to an episode where the host talked about the difference between controlling and it talks about codependency and caring and having a person that you can reach out to and go, okay, am I doing this in a caring capacity or am I doing it in trying to control the outcome?
Ooh, that's good.
And relying on that person to be real for you. So you can say, okay, I just had this conversation with my daughter, or I'm going to, does this come across like I'm trying to control or I care?
Yeah.
And
having really good.
A checkpoint with that, because I think we just kind of automatically fall into that parenting role.
Yes.
And it again, just reminds us of that shift that we need to maybe internally try to be aware of so that we're not. And support, you said it, you and I had this conversation a while ago, and I actually continue to like remind myself when I think that I'm trying to put my opinion on, because you said, just be in a supporting role, just listen.
Yeah.
And we have to let them unravel their own stuff and go through their journey on their own and come out of it.
It's such hard.
We talk about raising teenagers, but raising adults, not raising, I'm using the word raising, but parenting adults is so hard.
Well, I don't know for you how you felt, but even though we were both very independent early, right? I was moved out on my own, paying my own bills, very young, 18, not saying it was the best path, but I still found in those first few years, I would rely on my mom for, oh my gosh, I don't know how to boil an egg. I mean, seriously, at the first I was like, how long do I boil it again? And I would call her several times like, how long do I boil an egg? How stupid is that? We didn't have Google back then.
No.
Or certain things like, how do I do this recipe? Because I didn't care to learn it when I was at home. And then I get out and I'm like, oh man. And there are times I remember in my 20s, definitely not, it's not been this way for a long time, but when I would get sick, if you would get the flu, there were times.
You want your mom.
I was like, oh, it would be nice to have my mom, because there was just that loving care that she would give. And so anyway, that's a transition.
Well, they have those funny TikToks about how the, 20 plus year old daughter is like doing this whole living independent, wanting to be on her own. And then she's like, Mom, where do I find the socket for the lights to turn off power? Mom, how do I do this? I mean, it's just like 20 things of mom. Mom. And you're like, oh my God, that's what it is. That's exactly what it is.
Well, we just talked about this before we started recording. And I went through this with my son, Taylor, when he was 19 and his lung collapsed, and we take him to the ER, and he is an adult in their eyes and supposed to make all his medical decisions. He wasn't prepared to totally take all that on. And guess who was really paying the bill?
It's so frustrating.
He was still on my insurance, of course, and he was only 19, but that was frustrating. And then talking to him about having surgery and having to remove part of his lung. And
he's supposed to make that decision.
He's supposed to make that decision. And looking at the look on his face, and he wasn't feeling good and he was drugged up and it was awful, but they're not ready to make these major medical, like you're taking out a chunk of his lung. Like this is a big deal.
Well, and it's a hard balance between, allowing them the space to start that transition of being an adult, but knowing that it doesn't just happen overnight.
Yeah.
You don't just turn 18 or 19 and all of a sudden you're an adult and you have the ability to make these wise decisions and know how to react to situations. And that comes with time, but helping them not feel like you're controlling, but back to what you're talking about with the medical bills. I mean, I just went through that with Kennedy. Yeah. Here she is, graduated from high school, going into her first year of college, and they call to have her pay the bill. And she has no idea, but yet I go to pay it. They won't even talk to me.
Yeah.
They won't even let me speak on the account. I've got to bring in my 18-year-old daughter who has no idea one about paying her medical bills and ask her to give me authority to speak to them. And I know so many parents out there have that same frustration.
Oh, for sure. Well, they're considered adults, except for they're not supposed to drink till they're 21. there's so many weird conflicting things around being an adult. But I just want to say we're trying to navigate all of it. This is, and I know a lot of parents are out there trying to navigate everything. A couple of other things that came up I thought were really interesting is, man, when they make a mess or they make a life choice, we talked about that briefly, but let them clean up their messes.
So hard to do.
I mean, it's just so hard to do.
Easier said than done.
I want to reference this because I thought this was really good. And maybe our adult children have a little compassion for us because we're trying to navigate this whole thing because we have brought you into this world and we were 100% responsible for you. So we had to nurture you and help you grow. And we were all responsible for everything. We were responsible for your health. We were protect you, hopefully educate you, hopefully, all the things. And then all of a sudden we're supposed to let go. And it's a change for us as parents. And there was this, I'm going to quote, there is a podcast out there and it is Grit and Grace of Life. And they had an episode on raising children or not raising children, sorry. Parenting adult children. But I thought I want to just read this. It says there's a seismic shift that occurs somewhere between high school graduation and the pay your own rent season in every parent and child's life. This human went from underfoot toddler to challenging teen, is suddenly out the door, certain they are equipped with everything they need to be a grown-up. As you watch them confidently stride forward, you realize they have no idea that you're still trying to figure this out.
We're right there along with them. We are.
We're trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And we want to empower them, and we still are their parent. And the love you have for your child, right? Yes. The love you have for a child never changes. Like that love is incredible. So, but the consequences when they're older and the life decisions are
they're bigger,
much bigger.
They're bigger. They're more expensive.
Yeah.
They're more life-changing.
Yeah.
The hardships are so much more difficult when, they make a choice. And there's, with that said, there's no bad choice. It's just a choice.
Yeah.
And we're trying to figure out how to not fix it.
Yes.
But be supportive and loving and just having a healthy boundary with that. Boundaries. How about boundaries? My daughter, Whitney, has been teaching me about boundaries. So
I love this. I want to hear.
I think she's going to be 32 this year. Hope she forgives me that I don't know. Yes, she has really brought this word into my life, boundaries. And I don't know how I feel about that word right now.
Okay, I want to know what she feels like you need to learn a boundary with her is what I'm hearing.
And she needs to learn a boundary with me, apparently. So
I would agree with that. I think there's boundaries both ways.
Yes. And so, Whitney's going through this chapter where I love and I respect, and I'm so happy that she's going through this place in her 30s where she's saying, okay, I'm going to honor me, and I'm focusing on self-love and
for her.
Boundaries with my mother apparently is in there. So her and I have this relationship where we talk every day. Sometimes we talk multiple times a day. It's been that way always, but even more so now because we do work together. So we're very much a part of each other's life and everything that's going on. And so I know everything. And now she has a boundary. And I am not supposed to know everything. And I don't need to know everything. And
okay,
I'm
Whitney.
Fighting it.
Go, Whitney.
I'm fighting it. I'm like, well, if you're going to have a boundary, I'm going to have a boundary.
Yeah. Oh, that is so funny.
And then, so I'm
so proud of her, though. I think that's good.
It is. It's healthy. It's good. But again, it goes back to speaking to that whole shift that we have to have where she has come to me for most all of her decisions and we talk about them. And I have given my opinion on everything. And it's probably not the healthiest thing for her. And I'm realizing and recognizing that I need to take a step back.
Is that the codependency piece?
It's my codependency. It's my adolescent chair. It's all of that.
Yeah.
So here's the great part about all this is I'm learning alongside her.
Yeah.
And as a result, I'm hoping that that's going to translate to the rest of my kids that are younger and especially Kennedy. So I'm still not perfected it. I'm still working on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I hate that fucking word boundaries.
No, but I actually think it's really good because I see we're living in an age where we know a lot of people where kids come back home and they're living back home. It may be short term. Some are, it's just a weird time. But I think in that case, if they come back home and they're an adult, especially if they have lived on their own and now they're coming back. Well, obviously they don't have a curfew and obviously they're living with you for a financial reason or an interim because they're building a house or they're moving or whatever.
Right.
But there's got to be boundaries. Parents can't go, okay, just move back and not have set an expectation. That's not fair to them. And it's not fair to the parents either. I see this happen a lot, but the kids come in and kind of go back. In some cases, I've heard this. They've reverted back to like when they were a teenager and not picking up after themselves, not contributing to food, not cleaning the house, whatever it is. And the parents are really frustrated. It's like, well, did you set the boundary? So I think boundaries go both ways.
Oh, for sure.
And I know a boundary for me, and I'm big. This is actually in one article I found. You need to call before you show up at your kid's house. And I've always respected that because I'm definitely that way. I could care less actually if my kids showed up.
I'm the same.
But I know what their life is like. So both my kids, Tasia and Taylor, are in the thick of it right now. They have full-time jobs. They each have 2 children. Tasia's got a beautiful son who's autistic, who requires special care. Taylor's got 2 kids that are 11 months apart. Back to back. And cute little Banks is 3 months old. And Ellie is, turned a year in March. They are so busy. The wife, my daughter-in-law, amazing, beautiful, works full time. She works 2 jobs. Tasia works 2 jobs. I mean, they're all so busy. But I was actually talking to Taylor today. And this is where you talk about sometimes you want to fix it and you want to help him. He is exhausted. He's stressed. He's started a new job. He's got a lot on his plate. He's working 50 probably hours a week. He's dealing with 2 little kids. Elliot was sick last night, throwing up.
Oh, yeah.
He's feeling that overwhelming. Do you remember the feeling?
Oh, yeah.
And all I could do, I let him vent. I let him talk. But my heart kind of breaks for him because I know exactly how he feels. Yeah. But I also know he'll get through it and this time will pass. But I have to really part of me, I'm like, I want to just go, can I just take the kids and I'll take them for a little bit? And I thought,
it builds character. I think we'll say that. Our boundary is that you're building character, honey.
Yeah. And he's like, yeah, whatever. Well, he was over last weekend. I said the very same thing. Yeah, I know exactly how you feel. And he's like, that's not helping right now. Like, we've been there, done that. We all have been there and done that. And I feel for him. But yeah, we can't rescue him, right? They're going to navigate. They're doing amazing and they're going to figure it out. But do you remember those times? He's like, I don't even have time to fit in golf. And I go, yep.
Yep, it's what it is.
It's kind of like what happens.
It's another change. It's another shift. And we're figuring it out alongside him. And at the same time, I love that, you're having the conversation. He's calling you and chatting with you.
I love it.
I value my mornings. My daughter, Erica, she lives in Argentina and she now has 2 kids, Penelope and Tiago.
Your grandson yet.
We spend our mornings catching up. So she calls me. It's usually about 2 hours difference. So she's a couple hours ahead and it's 6 a.m. And so we just sit and she chats. And, we have built that friendship relationship. And yet at the same time, she still will call and ask advice on her parenting or being a wife. And we talk through some of those things. And so we've got a really good, healthy balance with it. And I don't know if it's because of the distance that's created that, but I do love when she's like, okay, Mom, I need you. And I can be there and that's okay. And so I think every kid, we have a different relationship with them and we learn how to navigate them individually.
You said something that kind of hit me is when they call you and I need help, we still want to be that person.
Yeah.
That never changes, right?
Yeah.
For me, it doesn't.
No.
I want to be that person. And I feel like I don't get enough time with my kids, my adult children, because they're so busy.
Well, they're in the thick of it.
Yeah.
Katie and I are still trying to navigate that. She's in her mid-20s and she's going to nursing school and she graduates this year. And she's got 4 dogs and a yard. And so she's like so super busy, and we're trying to figure out, okay, how do we have that connection and how do we still stay in touch?
Yeah.
But it's like, as they get older, you also have to figure out how to be okay with that and patient through that. Because remember when we were that age, we were so into ourselves and our families and what we were doing. And and you just hope that it calms down for them and it comes around, and then you can start having that shift take place as they become older, like we did.
Yeah. I love that. Well, I would love to leave everybody with a few tips.
Perfect.
So what is your number one tip? I want to hear from you. Like, what's a tip that you would say you've either conquered or still working on or trying to figure out? Or what's some advice you've received that you are like, this is really good, whether you've heeded it or not?
Well, 2 of them, I'm really learning my boundaries.
Okay, we got to
where I need to stay in my lane. I would say for me, it's really being able to be supportive to my kids without thinking that I need to interject and fix whatever it is they're talking about, and thinking that I have to take it on.
Yeah.
I'm probably one of my biggest weaknesses with parenting is when my kids share something, I want to instantly fix it. I got this and deal with it. And I'm learning that I need to just take a step back. They're not asking me to fix it. They're just sharing and talk through it and listen and be supportive. And if they ask for my advice, then I'll give it, but I need to learn to not give it. With that, I haven't mastered it. I'm still failing at it, but I try to be more mindful of it.
I disagree that you're failing. We're constantly learning, right?
We're constantly learning.
Yeah. I would say for me, some of the biggest things that I'm trying to incorporate is now that they have children, I don't want to give unsolicited advice. I'd love to know their perspective and what their thoughts are. If I give too much advice as far as their parenting, because I think they're both amazing parents, and I try not to. I try to give helpful, like if they're talking about a situation or this is happening, and I say, well, maybe try this, whatever. But I don't feel like I critique them and I'm like, oh man, you need to do this different, or I don't feel that way at all. I think they're both amazing parents. All 4 of them are amazing parents. It's more about life choices that I want to interject sometimes, that like the bigger stuff. Yeah. But it's a constant work in progress.
And maybe they'll share with us. Maybe they'll listen to this and give us
they will.
give us their opinions of how we're parenting.
Yeah. Well, a couple of things that, and leave me talking about a few things. Get to know them as adults, which I love that. Looking at your children a little bit differently. Looking at them as an adult and not your child.
And honoring how they're navigating adult life.
Yeah, I love that. Calling before you go over there. Don't bug them about marriage and kids.
Check. Work on that.
Boundaries. Don't give unsolicited advice. This is one of them. Yes. Let them clean up their own messes. Talked about don't make them choose between you and your family. Here's one that is really hard to talk about or hard to think about, but I think is so powerful. And going through this with my parents, my mom and my stepdad, is having an honest discussion about the end of your life and what you want that to look like. I know we think we're not there yet. We don't know. We never know.
Right.
But that is so powerful to talk about what is important to you. What do you want your older years to look like? And telling your kids what your expectation is and what you're planning to set yourself up, whatever it is. Like, I don't want to go to a nursing home, or I'm prepared to financially go wherever I need to be, that kind of stuff.
Or
That's a big conversation.
I've taken care of this part of it. And no, I think it's super important. And we're at that age right now where loss is coming into play a lot with our relatives and so forth. And so I think it's appropriate to prepare them and talk about it. And even though they don't want to, and if you can't talk about it, maybe it's writing down a list and having it in a place.
Yeah. It's a gift.
Yeah.
Because I've asked my mom these questions. What music do you like? What flowers? All the things that I want to honor her.
Right.
That if I don't really ask the question, I'm not going to know. But maybe sometimes you got to share it with your kids. Like, I don't want a funeral. I want a life celebration. I want everybody there having a great time. Yeah. I want them to be drinking wine, telling all the funny stories.
Yeah.
That's what I want. But what is your funniest? Do you have a funny story of a parent fail or with adult children?
A funny story of a parent fail. I have this one story that I thought was actually pretty hilarious, but I can't share it because Katie would strangle me. A parent fail.
I feel like, well, we tend to criticize ourselves, but to all of our children out there, we love you and we are doing our best and we're trying to set boundaries, Whitney, and we're working on it.
We're a work in progress.
Yeah. Okay, so you can't think of a parent fail.
You go, because I'm still trying to think.
Oh,
I'm sure my kids have so many stories on me.
I have a few. I can think of one more recent, which I would say when Tasia told me she was pregnant with Eleanor. Mm-hmm. It was a bit of a surprise. And I think my reaction was a parent fail because I was standing there holding a glass of wine, ready to sit down. And she just said, "I'm pregnant." And I think I froze and just stared at her. And I would love to hear her take on this. I've heard it, but it's so funny. And I did not have words. I wasn't prepared. I had no idea because I would have thought I would have known. Do you know, you think you're supposed to you do know a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But that's just a more recent one. But man, I've had a lot of parent fails. And that's with an adult child.
I know. I mean, let's be real. I know I've had some parent fails, and I'm sure when we get done with the episode, they're all going to come into my head. I can't think of one. There's so many.
Okay, let's switch it up. Okay, what are you most grateful for in your adult children?
You know, my daughter and I talked about it this morning when we were talking about Colin's wedding. And I love that we have maintained a very close relationship with all of our kids. We all love to be together. Our kids love to hang out with us. And I think that just speaks to our family dynamic. And I'm proud to say that they're in the same space as we are as parents, where we just want to be together.
Yeah.
And we love our family.
Yeah. I love that. I would say the same thing. I love my children and the adults that they have become. And that question of, looking at your child as an adult, not just your child. I'm so proud of them. And I do love that relationship with them. It's so much fun. Like, they can't wait to have family dinner. They can't wait to do a family vacation. And so just blessed. I mean, it's just a beautiful
thing. So there's one. We're doing something right. We're doing something. They still want to hang out with us.
Right? Because I have to say, when we were growing up, there was a definite difference between me and my mom.
Yeah.
And what she liked to do versus what I like to do was definitely different. So I think this generation, you see a lot more of that, like going to concerts, taking the trips. I mean, we took them all to Kentucky, to the horse races. I mean, just stuff like that, and creating memories. Oh my gosh, what a blessing.
So I want to say too, because I agree with you. I couldn't be more proud of all of my kids. They're so beautiful inside and out. They've really demonstrated some serious perseverance through tough challenges, but I would not do them a service if I didn't share how much they have taught me. And I have learned so much over the years being a parent, and I'm so grateful that that I have my children, that my stepkids love me like their mom, and that I have, they've taught me so much about being a stepmom. And so we're still learning.
I love that, because that's a really good point. I've learned a lot from my kids too. And I've often said jokingly, God gave me Taylor for a reason. And I do think I really had to learn a lot. The guy has got the biggest heart. And I do think our kids we have our children for a reason.
Yeah, they teach us so much.
Oh my gosh.
About ourselves.
Yes, that's so true. That's a big one. About ourselves. Yeah.
So parenting adult children, share with us your stories. We would love to see them. You can comment on our social media, send us an email, but we would love to hear your stories and what you are finding that is serving you well as parenting adult children.
Yeah. And any advice you want to give us that could improve our journey as parenting our adult children, we would love to hear it, because we need it.
So thank you for listening to this episode. You can rate us on Apple, which we would love and appreciate. And you can find us at our website, piecesofawoman.com.
Thanks, everyone.